Trump administration wants your data. But why? The White House is reportedly teaming up with controversial tech powerhouse Palantir, the data analysis and technology firm co-founded by Trump megadonor Peter Thiel. The purpose? To build a federal database tracking millions of Americans. Supporters say it'll stop fraud and boost efficiency. Critics call it a surveillance nightmare. But what's really happening? And why is this new system sparking so much outrage?
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
It's unacceptable to President Trump to allow rampant waste, fraud, and abuse.
Billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud and waste.
In case you hadn't heard, President Trump is on a quest to quash waste, fraud, and abuse. And his administration expands its footprint across the federal government. All roads run through the tech giant Palantir. A March executive order pushes all federal agencies to share their data, effectively giving Palantir the keys to the kingdom. At least 4 major agencies are already on board: the IRS, Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, and the Social Security Administration. Each channeling sensitive data like medical claims, bank accounts, even immigration records into one central database.
On its face, it looks like the government is trying to save money in terms of operations, not doing the same thing over and over again. When you look a little deeper, or perhaps the implications or the risk is putting all the information together at one time going to create a greater risk for the American public.
The goal? Catch fraud, spot threats before they escalate, and streamline how government works. The pitch is compelling: fewer wasted tax dollars, faster services, and smarter law enforcement. But Palantir, co-founded by Trump ally Peter Thiel, would have unprecedented access to Americans' personal data. That has some employees walking away. The fears go beyond privacy. Critics say the system could be weaponized, used to go after political opponents or vulnerable communities. And once the data's centralized, it's nearly impossible to undo, and it could make it more difficult to protect.
How much do you know about Palantir? How much do you know about the history of Alex Karp, the name, prior to that, CIA, when it started, the month after it got started, kind of weird. Some of the people involved, you know, how now it's a $300 billion company. Just a couple of years ago, it was a $15 billion company. Stocks just skyrocketed. I think I even recommended it a few years ago in one of the videos that I did. Trump partnering up, a lot of people with the California issue coming out saying, we should use Palantir. Why? Well, we have this technology called Gotham and Foundry. One of them knows how to judge people's behavior, similar to Minority Report, which is kind of like a cool idea. And then the timing of it when it came out is right after what some of the people were trying to do with the government, Darpa, in 2003, that they closed and they said, no, we're not doing this program, which I'll talk about later. A month later, Palantir started with Alex Karp and Peter Thiel, but the history of it's weird. The most basic thing to be thinking about, the name Palantir. Where does even Palantir come from? Did you ever watch Lord of the Rings? In Lord of the Rings, there's this thing called Palantir, which obviously a guy like me, who for sure is a nerd, I follow all this stuff very, very closely. The meaning of Palantir is seeing stones. It's this stone that tells you what everybody in the world is doing today. And they named the company Palantir. So they're not even beating around the bush. We gonna build Palantir to see what you're doing today. That's kind of like somebody starts a, old folks home called Hannibal Lecter. And you're like, listen, send your father, send your mom, your parents are gonna be totally taken care of. And it's why you guys call it Hannibal Lecter? Who cares? It's just a name. Send them here. They're gonna live a long life. They're gonna be great. They're gonna be okay. Send them to our place, Hannibal Lecter. Little weird. A lot of questions that people have. We're gonna dig a little bit deeper into seeing what the hell is going on with that. So if you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna give you the notes at the end, so hang tight on how to get these. But who are your customers? So you got business customers and you got government customers. And when I say government customers, like a $113 million contract that they get from the government, including a $795 million contract that they got with the Pentagon and CIA, DHS, all of that stuff. At the same time, on the business side, you got Airbus that uses this technology with Palantir, that they figured out a way on how to accelerate certain things from solving a problem, a production error from 24 days to 17 days that saved them hundreds of millions of dollars. Ferrari uses Palantir. Credit Suisse uses Palantir. Merck and many others use Palantir. So the technology of surveillance is actually impeccable. When you run a company, you want to be able to do certain things to investigate who stole from you, forensics. We're going through it right now ourselves, and we've gone through it for the last 15 years. You need technology like that, so it does that. But that's company, right, that you're doing that with. Now imagine the government has access to technology, medical records, how you live, what you do, what decisions you're going to make, minority report, based on the way you're living and the patterns of things you're doing. It's most likely that in the next 90 days, you're going to get a divorce. In the next 60 days, you could potentially kill somebody. That's the fear that the average person's like, well, listen. I'm like, no, this is great. Well, what's the big deal? It's just a company. The skepticism with 20, 30% of people is that. But let me explain to you what it does a little bit so you understand it. So Palantir isn't just an improving old databases. It's building what some experts are calling the most expansive civilian surveillance infrastructure in U.S. history. Instead of scattered files and spreadsheets, the platform will use real-time data integration and artificial intelligence to profile behavior, detect fraud, and identify individuals or patterns deemed risky by the system. Deemed risky by the system. The system deems you risky or not risky. So the judgment's coming from the system saying, hey, this person's risky, be careful with this person, what we want to do with them moving forward. At the core of the project, Palantir's Gotham software, already used by defense and intelligence agencies, Gotham will now be used on the domestic front. It doesn't just track information, it makes judgments. That's the key. Judgments, right? It could influence everything from how benefits are distributed to who gets flagged for closer scrutiny by law enforcement and immigration offices. This is why they're like, let's send Palantir to California and let's have ICE use it to see who are these people and deport them. Why don't we use that? It's going to be a lot easier. We can track all their behavior and everything they're doing to track them and get them back to Mexico. Founder, the CEO, Alex Karp, very interesting background. He's not surveillance reluctantly. Sometimes when he's doing interviews and giving the answers like, but we don't want to do it. And I'm a little bit reluctant about it. And then also wary of Silicon Valley. He criticized big tech for undermining democracy and believes companies should take clear moral stands and anti-authoritarian. Now, you could be anti-authoritarian. This guy 20 years ago was worth less than $1 million. You know what he's worth today? $12 billion. He's doing pretty good for himself financially. It's one of the most powerful people in America today that no one talks about, Alex Karp. You're going to hear a lot more about this name. But a contact, Peter Thiel, business partner, now relationship with Musk. When they came in and Doge started working with the government, Doge employees that were being hired to do the work, a lot of them were former Palantir employees. Now, why are they hiring Palantir employees? Somebody could say they're brilliant, they're very smart. Somebody could say that was the way they were tracking wasted spending. This is a report that came up about some of the employees that used to be working with Palantir. You see the names, software engineer at Palantir, the other one over here that used to work at Palantir. Again, now he's helping recruit Doge members. Somebody could say, well, what's wrong with that? When Elon was, trying to fix X, he brought a lot of Tesla engineers to help. Yeah, that's a valid point. But again, this system is one that goes surveillance and tracks all the data to see what you do. They try to do this back in the days. The history needs to be told before we get here. So why don't we just do that? Why don't we go a little bit into the history? And we know Peter Thiel, probably one of the most powerful names that doesn't get enough credit. This guy's brilliant. He was one of the guys that was able to figure out a way to put money into a Roth IRA that led to $6 billion that he didn't have to pay taxes on. And everything was kosher. Nothing he did there, according to a lot of the studies and research that was done. This guy was a pro-Trump guy. He at one point, I think, wanted to build a country on an island of its own, libertarian beliefs. Also, I think he's a PayPal mafia guy. Super, super brilliant. And he's one of the guys last minute that had certain connections with J.D. Vance, that he was fans of J.D. Vance. I think he even helped fund J.D. Vance at one of his businesses. There's very close ties where even some people say that's kind of how, J.D. got into the picture with Thiel Jr., all of that kind of came together. So now, history of surveillance. Let's go back to it. 50s and 70s. The CIA begins experimenting with mass data collection and surveillance during the Vietnam War, laying the groundwork for future domestic applications of military tools. 1980s. There's this company called Promise comes out with the software. It's so great, the government decides to buy it, and then boom, they bankrupt the business, but they take the technology. The software was developed by Inslaw and under DOJ contract stolen by the U.S. and Israeli intelligence. Very interesting. What do you mean stolen by the U.S. and Israeli intelligence? Promise became the prototype for surveillance systems tracking individuals globally during the Reagan era, including Oliver North, developed Main Core. Keep that name. Main Core. It's going to come back up again in a minute. A classified database of Americans labeled as potential dissidents intended for use during continuity of government emergencies, COG. John Poindexter, again, remember that name, Reagan's national security advisor, is convicted for his role in the Iran-Contra affair. Later on, he was overturned on appeal. He was good to go, but this is in 1990. Remember, 1990, the program Main Core, keep those two in mind, because we're going to come back to this later on, okay? Now, 2001, 9/11, and the surveillance state expansion, Main Core is reportedly accessed by the White House. Main Core 2011, Main Core 80s, Reagan-era Oliver North. Think about how many years later, 20 plus years later, give or take, 15 plus years later, this comes back up. Then DARPA launches Total Information Awareness, TI. Total Information Awareness, TI, under who? John Poindexter, to build an all-seeing surveillance system. CIA CIO Alan Wade supports TIA, introducing concepts like selective revelation and audit trails for privacy shielding. Okay. What if an evil, administration comes in? Then what can they do? Then can they just kind of say, hey, this guy is very vocal, is against us, judgment. That guy's going to jail for 20 years. We're going to say that the software said this guy's about to commit a crime and kill 7 people, put him in jail for 20 years. What? That's the fear of where people are going with this. Make sense? You kind of lose your liberties and your freedom. That's a little bit, but they've been trying to do this for a while. Let's see what happens next. So then, 2003, you ready for this? TIA shuts down. And this is the whole DARPA deal that we're talking about. You know what starts a month later, give or take? A company called Palantir. And when Palantir got started, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, all these guys, when that got started, it's like, well, what were they going to be doing? Originally, it was aimed to apply PayPal's fraud detection to counterterrorism post 9/11. Remember, these guys are PayPal people, right? They're coming in. 2003, Peter Thiel, co-founder Alex Karp and others, backed by who? In-Q-Tel. Who's In-Q-Tel? It's CIA's venture capital arm that invests in different technologies. CIA's like, yeah, you guys going to do something like this? Here's some money, build it. We'd like to take advantage of something like this years later. And somebody Thiel's behind it. Again, Thiel, good guy. These people may be good guys, but if it eventually gets into a bad guy's hand, then what happens? What if one day a person turns and says, no, I hate these people. I have power. Watch what I'm going to be doing. Scares the crap out of everybody, right? Especially with these folks that have all this money that they can do different things with. So now ICE contracts. Palantir supported Homeland Security investigations. A division of ICE, despite claims of not aiding deportations, its tools were mission critical to targeted raids. Protests erupted in 2019, 2020, including outside of Karp's house, by the way. Activist group Mi Gente led opposition, likening Palantir's role to aiding in human rights violations. And then, by the way, again, this is the part when it comes down to predictive, privacy and surveillance, it was used in predictive policing for LAPD, NYPD, NOPD, adopted it, but later dropped it. So predictive policing, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable when they see this. Very strong technology still makes people uncomfortable. So the ethical dilemmas and public perception. Karp claims Palantir was built to balance national security and civil liberties. Critics, ACLU's Ben Witzner, views Palantir as enabling mass surveillance of citizens. ICE backlash versus military dependence. Karp says abandoning ICE would break trust with military partners. So again, good, bad, criticism, we got a lot more we can talk about, but this is what they have right now. 2 countries they don't do business with, China and Russia, thank God. As of right now, they don't do business with 2 countries. I'll give you a couple other countries that use them. French intelligence used Palantir after 2015 Paris attacks, claimed it helped prevent further incidents, and the Danish government paid up to $41 million for a predictive counter-terrorism platform.
Denmark is public knowledge. The whole country uses Palantir.
A couple other examples. JP Morgan, one of the former employees, used Palantir to spy on coworkers in 2018. And even a few years ago with WikiLeaks in 2011, apparently employees linked to a smear campaign. Karp later had to apologize. I believe it had to do with Glenn Greenwald, if I'm not mistaken. So Thiel, Karp, Musk, you got XAI, you got Palantir, you got Doge, all of that coming together. Musk's leadership of Doge while running XAI and X creates a public-private data pipeline where government data could enhance XAI's AI models, hence the Grok that we all know about that, many people use. Colossus is a supercomputer developed by XAI, Elon Musk's AI company, to train large language models. It currently develops the largest AI supercomputer in the world, located in Memphis, Tennessee, and is powered by NVIDIA Hopper GPUs. Colossus was built in a former Electrolux factory and is being used to train XAI's Grok. So the XAI Palantir TWG partnership, March 2025, positions Musk companies to profit from Doge's data access, especially in financial services. This partnership with XAI, Palantir, and TWG positions potentially Musk's companies to profit in a big way from Doge's data access. Again, that's what a lot of people in the market are saying, that's what could be happening here. So again, Gotham, one of the products of Palantir, used by intelligence and defense agencies. Foundry, on the other side, that's used by corporations and civilian government agencies. This the kicker here with this. Whenever you have a product like this that's being built, you always have to be thinking about, like when the founding fathers, built America and they wrote the Constitution, and George Washington had the opportunity to be a king third term. He said, no, I don't want to do it, right? And it was written in a way for this thing to last. And, democracies don't last a long time because internally the people are destroyed. They've been able to build something that if we go the way we're going, somehow, some way, we just may make it to next year, 250-year anniversary of U.S. 4th of July. We're going to be 250 years old. They built it that way. When you get technologies like this that gets into the, U.S. government and it's being ran by people who it's a free-for-all, I don't know the level of regulations and controls that who has over them. We're getting to the point that back in the days, it used to be where billionaires were the most powerful people in the world, in America. Rockefeller, Chase, they would finance the U.S. government. Then we went through a phase where presidents were the most powerful people in America. We are back to the phase where billionaires, soon to be trillionaires, could potentially be ruling everything because presidents are going to be needing them because the government's now becoming customers of these big companies, not the other way around. We're headed in that direction. What that could look like is, I don't want to tell you what that could look like.
Introducing Palantir SkyKit, bringing intelligence and operations to the edge. SkyKit is built for disconnected, adverse, hostile, and extreme environments. It is a self-contained intelligence center, giving soldiers an advantage over adversaries. SkyKit contains dual integrated monitors, onboard battery packs to power the entire unit for days, fully disconnected, and a secure storage area for the included devices. SkyKit includes satellite communications with commercial and government options available. A ruggedized laptop with Palantir software pre-installed. A quadcopter drone running computer vision algorithms via Palantir AIP. And a Trailcam Nano, also running detection algorithms on board the device. The SkyKit hardware is powered by Palantir software. Palantir Meta-Constellation is installed on SkyKit, enabling users to task and analyze satellite imagery rapidly from anywhere in the world. Palantir AIP powers the computer vision algorithms deployed on board the devices. These send detections directly to the base station. SkyKit has a modular design with variants for different use cases. SkyKit L is a lightweight, backpack form factor. SkyKit S is for sea and maritime use. Palantir SkyKit, the future of intelligence and ops on the edge.
Palantir's Meta-Constellation software harnesses the power of growing satellite constellations, deploying AI into space to provide insights to decision makers here on Earth. Our Meta-Constellation integrates with existing satellites, optimizing hundreds of orbital sensors and AI models, and allowing users to ask time-sensitive questions across the entire planet. Important questions, like where are there indicators of wildfires? Or how are climate changes affecting crop productivity? And when and where are naval fleets conducting operations? Meta-Constellation pushes Palantir's Edge AI technology to a new frontier. As we all know, submarines present threats to the US and its allies. And to protect strategic interests, Allied forces need to track every submarine's deployment around the world. And at the forefront of this challenge are anti-submarine warfare officers. They turn to Meta-Constellation to monitor ports across the Pacific. Let me show you a little bit about what that looks like. In response to Allied monitoring requests, Meta-Constellation dynamically determines which orbiting sensors are available. Integrated through Palantir, the constellations then collaboratively schedule coverage over each port. Meanwhile, Apollo for Edge AI assigns tailored AI micromodels to each satellite. Running on board the satellite, the models will automatically find submarines and stream those insights directly to users. With the mission planned, Apollo automatically reconfigures each of the satellites, pushing the right micromodels into orbit. And as a software payload on board, Palantir's Edge AI platform connects complex satellite subsystems to models, integrating new AI with the hardware. The best part, my favorite part, is that as it orbits, the Edge AI platform hot swaps the right micromodels in, rapidly reconfiguring the satellite. The models process imagery, they detect submarines, geolocate them, and then determine any movement since the last collection pass, all in under a second. When the AI sees a submarine movement, that insight is directly downlinked to Allied forces as the satellite passes overhead, and the anti-submarine warfare officers are notified in just minutes, empowering them to respond in a way that we've never seen before. As you can tell, we're really excited about Palantir's Meta-Constellation and see it as the software that brings hundreds of satellites to bear on your hardest problems. Whether it's the anti-submarine warfare officer that I just described, using it to find submarines, or first responders leveraging AI to spot wildfire signs, Meta-Constellation is there to empower users.